Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending today. I am Murray Tuff, the moderator for this session, which is using virtual reality to share the power of Rotary. Thank you for attending. And now I would like to introduce your trainer, Stephen Bowe.
Welcome to Using Virtual Reality to Share the Power of Rotary. My name is Stephen Bowe. I am president-elect for the Silverdale Rotary Club. We're about an hour ferry ride outside of Seattle. Quick background, my wife and I owned a film production company in Los Angeles for 25 years before we moved up to Silverdale here. And I've always had a passion for technology and story, and virtual reality is one of the most exciting ways to share stories that has come along in a long ways. And one of the reasons is we don't watch VR, we experience it. And we'll be talking about that as we go along quite a bit. But before we do, I want to start by thanking Murray Tuff for moderating today. It's a lot of work, but I think we're in good hands. Also, some of the public events we're going to be talking about today are obviously on hold for a little bit with the situation in the world. So, but we'll be back up one day soon, and this will give you plenty of time to plan for your club. So before I jump into our slideshow, I wanted to take a quick moment to show you a couple equipment items so that you know what we're talking about. I know some of you may be familiar with VR. Some of you may have never experienced it at all, and I want to make sure everybody knows where we're heading. So most of the time when we're talking about VR, most people experiences, they've experienced it on their phone. You can download an app, or you can go onto YouTube even and see 360 VR videos. You can watch it just on your phone just by doing this, moving around, or you can get something like this right here. This is a headset for your phone. It costs about $10 to $30, usually in that range. This one I got at the Goodwill for $3. They make cardboard ones. So if you go to a big event like Rotary International and you do their event, they'll give you cardboard ones. And basically, you open it up, drop your phone in, shut it, and now you can watch VR in 360 around you, so a 360 film. And that works out pretty well, but it's limited. So nowadays they have standalone headsets, and this right here is called the Oculus Quest. And this one is a standalone unit. So it's got everything you need in it. It also hand controllers. Plus the optics are much better. There are two types of Oculuses, Oculus Go and Oculus Quest. Oculus Go runs you about $200 per unit here, and this one runs you about $400. The big difference, the optics are better, so you see better with this one, but this one allows you to be more interactive than the Oculus Go. For Rotary purposes, the Oculus Go works great. The only problem with this one right here is if you have a Go and you try this one, you'll never want to put the Go on. And so be careful. It is a bait and switch if you do use this one, but it's amazing. Again, welcome to Using Virtual Reality to share the power of Rotary. And what I mean by the power of Rotary is what it feels like to be a Rotarian. And we all have a date as to when we joined Rotary, but more importantly, we have that moment where we became a Rotarian. And that feeling, that moment in our story is why we stay in Rotary. Now, what if we could share that experience with members before they even joined? Now, that's the power of VR. A prospective member can experience that feeling of what it's like to live service above self. I want to start out with a question here. What do you think is the biggest challenge to building club membership? I'll give you a short moment here. If you have any ideas, please just send it through the chat, and we'll be discussing it later. And examples I've heard might be getting people to come to meetings, or it's difficult to convey what Rotary is, or no, we don't have to wear silly hats. That's the other clubs. Meanwhile, here's the topics of what we're going to be covering today. What is VR? The equipment, available resources, the VR experience, how that affects our membership, and how we can utilize it for fundraising. And then why should we care about VR? But in the end, I have three key takeaways I want to make sure that I cover here is what is VR, how to use VR to build membership and fundraising, and why, again, it's important, because I really don't believe that you understand something truly until you understand the why behind it. We'll start off here with what is VR. This session is not about a lot of tech talk, so we're not going to be talking heavy tech, except for the next slide. And this is about as deep as we're going to go. However, I think it's important that you understand what we're talking about when we say VR. So there's three basic VRs, what you might be considering VR. First one is augmented reality. Now, this is overlaying objects on the real world. Think pointing your phone at a sign in a foreign country and having it automatically translate the sign into English. Google Glass was an example of this. You could walk down the street and say, I want to go to the park, and through the glasses, it would overlay a map on the street that would lead you to your destination. Now, the next one, virtual reality, or VR, is a fully immersive computer-generated environment. Now, whether that's a video game, an educational tool, or a 360-degree video, which most of you may be familiar with. In a full VR experience, you can pick up objects, you can open doors, you can play tennis, or you can just go kill zombies with your friends from around the world. So there's a lot of different things you can utilize it for. And then the third one is mixed reality, which is the most complicated. And that's combining the two, where computer-generated objects can interact with real-world structures. So you can have a virtual computer-generated cat run under the actual couch in your living room, and the computer can recognize your entire living space. Now, all three of these are under the banner of extended reality, or XR. The reason I say this is because you're going to hear a lot of these different comments or terminology. Virtual reality is the most common, but I think most people call all of these VR, so they're interchangeable a little bit. But this is the technical side of it. Okay, so we want to start off here talking about the VR experience event. And the first question is of course, what is the VR experience event? And basically, it's whatever you imagine it to be. There's no set rule of how an event is run. It can start at one of your club's meetings. That's how we started ours. I just had one for our club members so that people in our group could understand what I was talking about. Because VR is one of those things that until you experience it, you don't always understand it. Or maybe there's a local event where you set up a booth and you invite people to put on a headset, and then you spend about 5 minutes experiencing what it means to be a Rotarian. And, or maybe it's like the Rotary International Convention. It's a room of several hundred people sharing an experience. And you can see here, they all have their cardboard viewer glasses, and they've got phones inside them. Now, luckily, Rotary International has provided a lot of resources to set up your event. Just visit rotary.org/VR. That's everything you need to know right there. The first thing they provide are 3 just incredibly wonderful 360-degree VR films. Each one is unique in its own way. And my club was originally going to use the one entitled One Small Act for our featured film that we were going to use at our events. But after watching these 3 films over and over again, there was one moment that not only changed my mind, but it also made me a true believer in VR. The center film there, 2 Drops of Patience, is a film about a woman's journey to a remote village in Africa where she's learning to administer the polio vaccine. And in one scene, she's giving the 2 drops to a little baby that's laying in her mother's arms. Now, because the film is 360 degrees, while she's doing this, I turn around at that moment and I see these other mothers with their babies just eagerly waiting for their chance to receive the vaccine. And when I saw the looks on their faces, you know, I instantly connected with them. And I understood at that moment how powerful VR could be. Now, of course, when you're selecting your films, you could choose any of these films. Choose the one that connects with you, because everyone's experience will be slightly different. Now, Rotary also provides an event planning guide. And in that, they're going to discuss the equipment you need, headsets, and probably noise cancellation headphones. It gets a little loud sometimes at some of these events. How to set up a room. Usually a couple chairs, a table for promotional material is all you need. I would say you need at least 2 volunteers, depending on how many headsets you have. More headsets, more volunteers are needed. And also the size of the event that you're at. You'll need all of your event promotions. Again, we'll talk about that. And VR, Rotary supplies that. And then also practice information. There's some great information here on how to be prepared. Now, as far as promotional material, social media post text already written for you. You can just type in your club's name, add it there. Same with ad templates. There are posters, there's flyers, there's tabletop signs, all ready to go. Just download and add your club's branding to it. They also include an important safety guide. VR, for the most part, is safe, but for people using it for the first time, it can be a bit disorienting. Our club actually had people sign a short waiver ahead of time, but that was also a great reason to collect names and emails at the same time, so that worked out well. And I probably wouldn't have kids under 12 use it. I have 8-year-old kids and they'll get on it, but I limit their time on it. But for 5 minutes on there that they're watching the film, most people really enjoy it. They also include, and we're coming to the most important part of the event. After you've sat someone down, you put the headset on them and you press play. And then after you listen to them, they sit there and they go, wow. And then they go, wow. And they repeat that over and over again. And then they remove the headset and they have this huge smile on their face. This is when the conversation begins. So the big question is, what is your call to action going to be? And this is your opportunity to talk to them about what they've experienced, ask them how it made them feel, ask them if there is a key moment that stood out to them. And you can discuss what Rotary does. The conversation has started, so don't let it die by just letting them walk away. Invite them to a meeting, or maybe you can ask for a donation. People who are asked for a donation immediately afterwards have a 40% greater chance of donating than without it. So a donation for a specific cause always works best as well. For example, you can raise money to help end polio, or perhaps raising funds for another organization, a food bank or a homeless shelter. You can also ask them to volunteer for an upcoming event. But minimum, make sure you get their name and contact information so you can continue the conversation as you go along. And what we do at our club here is we have promotional materials with us, not just for the VR, but also for our club. And we have these little business cards that you can see front and back here. So we can put your name, our Rotary member name and number on there and give it to them, invite them to lunch. And that's a handy little thing to carry around with you. When you create an event at a meeting or a conference or a festival, it's important to make it an event. Make it so people walking by your booth or your tent have to stop and see what all the commotion is. We put several of these banners up. These are 6 feet tall banners. You can't walk past our booth without seeing them. Now, Rotary has brandable artwork again, and if you, the image on your right of the woman with the end polio viewer on there is one that you can download from their site. If you're interested in the other banners, I'm happy to share any of those club banners with you, and you can, you're welcome to brand them with your own club information. What is an event again? We try to have our events in public places, at the mall or a local gala event. We even use a couple gaming chairs that light up. And you can see in this one picture. They do nothing else except light up. So they just look cool and people kind of line up because they want to sit in that chair for some reason because it's pretty. And you set up the chairs, set up a little table in a public area, and as people walk by, you just invite them to experience a Rotary film. Your cost for a basic setup of headset and a headphone can be about $300 each for the Oculus Go and a headset, or about $500 for the Oculus Quest and a headset. My club utilizes 2 of the Oculus Quest. You can see them here in this picture. So for about $1,000, your club can be up and running. I know a club there in California that has a travel setup they call VR in a trunk, and it includes 8 of the Oculus Go's, chairs, folding table, pop-up tent, and all of the promo material, so they can pull up to almost any event in town and start sharing. Again, the photo right here on the right is at our local mall, and I think we're probably right next to the Panda Express or something. The one on the top left is at a local Military Appreciation Day event. I'm a real estate agent and I had a booth there. And so I decided to set up the VR experience and cross promote with Rotary. And the gentleman in the wheelchair is a veteran and he is experiencing VR for the first time and is walking around a glacier in Antarctica, which to me just was so cool. The man next to him is one of our club's presidents, Rick, and he's playing Angry Birds. So put that into perspective. There's something for everybody there. The thing to remember about VR is it's not as complicated as it appears. There's a bit of a learning curve at first. You know, how to make VR is complicated. How to use it is fairly straightforward. And if you think about the first time you used your smartphone, it took a bit to get comfortable. But now it's pretty much second nature for all of us. And then the event down below, I pulled it up. I think it's at one of the I don't know if it's the international convention or one of the conventions. Again, you sit people down in chairs. You don't want people standing up and moving around or accidentally punching each other. The future of Rotary is already here. Now, most of us are familiar with e-clubs, especially now that sites like Zoom have become so popular. But younger people are being raised in a VR environment. Their social existence and norms of communication are moving into a virtual world more and more each day. I host a weekly Rotary VR Universe meetup every Thursday evening. We get maybe 20 or 30 people showing up to discuss ways we can be of service to others. This is a selfie that I took of our virtual meeting room. And that's my avatar in the middle there, or at least a younger cartoon version of me. Most of the people who attend, though, have never even heard of Rotary. But they hunger to be of service. They're searching for that experience that you and I already share. So now, sites like Zoom, they're great. They're keeping us connected during this time, especially, and they're great for meetings. Many people call these online meetings virtual meetings, but these are not virtual meetings. These are video conference calls, and they've been around for decades. So. Again, they've served a great purpose, but the limitations of video conferencing is painfully apparent. It amplifies the fact that you are here and the people you are speaking to are there. They are in another location and another space. So imagine in the future if we could all share the same space, perhaps maybe a rooftop conference room with a mountain view, a speaker is at a whiteboard up front drawing out a diagram of his or her idea. And at the same time, you could pick up an object and pass it around the table for everyone to hold and look at. So that future is now. That imagined scenario is already happening. So, and quite frequently, Bill, a good friend of mine, and I, we spend the evening relaxing in conversation in this beautiful Japanese Zen garden. There's a koi pond with bright colored fish. The wind rustles through the trees as we sit listening to sounds of distant wind chimes and crickets hiding under the cedar bridge. Now, our minds know we are actually sitting in our living rooms 1,000 miles away from each other. My kids are playing in the other room. And Bill lives way in the middle of the Southern California desert. But our bodies are telling us that we are sharing the experience of this virtual Zen garden. And once our bodies believe it, it's easy for our minds to follow as well. Now, this is the shared experience. This is the shared experience. My brother's a scientist with the VA over in Seattle, and he's been working on for several years now utilizing VR as the way to treat people with traumatic injuries and loss of limbs. And they are doing some amazing things where they're decreasing the pain level of people with loss of limbs down 65%. And so VR is being utilized in a lot of different ways to help people. It not only as fundraising, but as ways to treat PTSD, depression, as a way to treat autism. It's so many different ways that it's being utilized, and as a tool for training purposes. So whether we like it or not, VR is here. And even though if you look up here, this quote here, VR is a way to escape the real world into something more fantastic. It has to be potential to be the most social technology of all time. I don't look at it as something more fantastic. I think something that is just part of our world that is fantastic. It is a wonderful tool. It is not like what we've seen with 3D films that kind of come and go. It's been around for about 100 years. It's been in various shapes and forms, even earlier than that. If you think about it, the Viewmasters that you might have had as a kid is pretty much a form of VR. If looking into this little box and being transported to another world. So as Rotary moves forward, we have to embrace new technology and new social norms if we want to survive. I was in a meeting a few months back with Rotarians from another club, and we were discussing change. And this one gentleman said, doesn't see why their club should change. They like it the way it is, eating lunch together every week, talking and doing things the way they've always done them. He doesn't want change. So this brings me back to the question I asked you in the beginning here, is what do you think is the biggest challenge to building club membership? What do we think that is? And we'll be looking through the comments you had here, but I want to argue that the answer to that question is in the Rotary logo. It's always been there. We are people of action, and the wheel of Rotary is motion itself. Now, I don't want Rotary to survive. I want it to thrive, and the only way to do that is to stay relevant to the times. We must adapt, we must evolve, create, inspire, and act like the leaders that we are. We lead by example, and VR is just another tool in our kit that shows prospective members that we are relevant and that we are progressive and that we are people of action. A lot of people say they don't like change. And I believe that most people like change. It's the changing part that most of us hate. That's the painful part. Change itself is inevitable, but it's also important to growth, our personal growth and our growth as a club. And if a new member comes in and sees us sitting there enjoying ourselves, which is great, enjoying having lunch, yet we're not people of action, why would they want to join the club? Why would they want to become a Rotarian? Look at who you've been attracted to over your life. They are usually going to be people that are moving forward, that are expanding. So our club should be that way. I hope during this time period I've covered the 3 takeaways. What is VR? How to use VR to build membership and fundraising. And again, most importantly, why VR is important to Rotary. What I'd like to do is go ahead and open this up, and moving actually pretty fast here, opening it up to questions here.
How easy is it to make our own content?
It's getting easier and easier. So you can take out, there are apps for your cell phone right here. I use it just for making, as a real estate agent, I go do virtual 360 tours in a house. It's fairly easy, but there are plenty of different apps you can use. There are also cameras. We just ordered one that's a 360 camera, and the cameras start at about $100, $100 to $500 is the range for good quality cameras, and then you jump to $5,000 for high-end pros, which most of us don't need. But pretty simple. The big difference, you know, I mentioned that VR has been around for 100 years. It's been utilized, especially in the past 20 or 30 years, but it just was too expensive. It was only over the past couple of years where it became affordable for consumers, and that's the ticket to make it widespread. And that Oculus Quest was the breakthrough of getting it detached from a computer and making it available to everyone. I noticed some of the comments there of no personal connection and for it. And and we have a personal connection. When you connect, I mentioned earlier on the 2 drops of patience, when I connected with the mothers that were standing behind waiting in line, that was a personal connection. I looked behind there and saw it, and having 2 young kids right now, myself, that moved me, and that was my personal connection. It made me want to reach out and do something. Now, once that emotion is there, and we talked about afterwards, having that conversation with that person, that's where you make the personal connection to bring them into the club. Because the same things you've heard in the past, where if somebody comes into the club and they're forced to sit over on the side, or they're not welcome, they don't feel welcome, nothing you do in VR is going to make them stay. But those people that are inspired by the film and show up at that meeting, as long as you do your part of making them feel welcomed and including them in your club, they'll make great members, I think.
Okay, great. I have some more questions for you now.
Sure.
Where can we purchase the Oculus viewers, and can Rotary get a discount if we order a larger quantity?
Well, I can't say about the discount. My guess would be not, because Facebook owns it, and when is Facebook going to give you a discount? But there might be some organizations might. What happened was Oculus really exploded around Christmas time. When I bought mine, I got mine on Amazon. You can buy it directly from Oculus. There's a 64 gigabyte and 128 gigabyte. You don't need the 128 gigabyte. I've got a lot of stuff on here, and I haven't run out of space. And that one's 400. But Amazon, everybody ran out around Christmas time. And so now because of COVID-19, they're a little delayed. It took me 2 weeks to get this through Amazon. Sometimes it takes up to a month to get it. One warning is you're going to see a lot of these online for like $600–700. Those are scams. Don't pay more than $400 for it right now.
Would you please give some examples of fundraising ideas?
Okay. So the first obvious one is polio, for the Polio Foundation. That's what these films, all 3 of these films are based around polio. So if somebody watches this, so we might go to an event, let's say it's a local farmer's market. Maybe it's like we had this Military Appreciation Day. They had about 3,000 people walking through with the vendors. So it's a festival. Or there was a medical society event, a gala event. And we just asked, can we set this up in the lobby? We thought, hey, a bunch of rich doctors, we could come in there, and we set it up. We had 2, we utilized 2 just because that's what we could afford. And we have probably 3 volunteers with us at a time, 2 of us controlling these, and then 1 talking with people and checking them in. And afterwards, we would just say, talk to them about the experience, and then say, also, would you like to donate to Rotary Plus or Rotary and polio? You could also go to an event that's a charity event, and let's say it's a food bank event that they're having, and you go in the lobby there and say, would you like to donate to the food bank here tonight? It's helpful if you have some kind of way they can donate right then. We have you can text your text Rotary Cares to a number, or having a little swipe credit card, or even just having a box where people can drop a check or money in is helpful. I know the club that I was mentioning in California with the eight VR in a trunk, they raised about $14,000 in a weekend at just a local event. So so any cause that you can think of, it doesn't have to be polio. It can be, because once they see that, they're inspired. They're inspired to help no matter what the cause is.
Can you explain the difference between 3D and VR?
Well, 3D, like when you go to a movie theater and you see 3D, most of us have seen that. You wear the glasses on, and you can shift left or right, or it feels like it's coming at you. It's this bending feeling, just like you see with my hand doing that. but you would be able to see around my hand a little bit. Right now, you can see that I'm in a room, right? This is like watching TV. You can't see this direction, left or right, it's backward. You can't see around the room. When you put on one of these headsets, I'm taken to another space. My little home space in there is a really, really cool house in the mountains. It looks like a dome house with snow outside. It's beautiful. I can rotate all the way around. I can look up. And just like right now, I can see this entire room around me. I can see the entire space in here. I do Tai Chi in this. And I can't do Tai Chi in real life because I see a lot of squirrels. I start doing it and then they go, oh, look, and I bounce around. I put this on and I can transport to a mountainside over an ocean someplace. And I can do the Tai Chi, but because it's focused in like this, I can actually use it for meditation that I can't do outside. But yeah, 360 immersive means we can look around. You'll see like some of the films, the 360 films, they may only be just like this. And Disneyland used to have a Flying Over America thing back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, which was a 360 film. This is the same thing, but now you can look up, you can look down. Also, when I talk about interactive, you can go in there and you can pick up objects. You can pick up a tennis ball. You can pick up a paper airplane. You can I play racquetball in the middle of the night with my friend Bill, who I mentioned before. And instead of it being like a video game where you play on a flat screen, I'm holding a racket, a ball's coming at us, and I see him and we're playing like we're in a racquetball court. And we're running around, and I broke my chandelier, though you have to be careful because I hit it with my hand. I hope that it's really something until you've experienced it, it's hard to understand. I had heard about VR for years and I tried it on the phone and was like, okay, that's really interesting, but I didn't understand what all the hoopla was. I finally was down in Las Vegas. There's a place called The Void. And you go in there and you do these VR things. And that was the first time that I really understood how amazing the technology was. There's also, I think, the closest one to us here is in Vancouver. I think it's called Sandbox VR. So if you're ever in Vancouver, it's well worth doing.
Does your club make its own content, or do you just use Rotary material?
We have the camera on order. It's supposed to be here by the end of May. It's taken a month and a half to get us to it. We're not sure what that content is yet. I've seen a couple clubs put a 360 camera in the middle of their meeting. And although we do live streaming of our meeting, the camera is pointed up at the presentation stage. When you put a live 360 camera in the middle of the meeting, what you mostly see is Rotarians doing this. And so I didn't find that really interesting. And it's kind of off-putting just to have somebody there, just everybody, we don't look all that pretty when we're eating. But it might be really helpful when we're doing an event. One of the things we do is stuffing bags for homeless, and we set it up in a table in a circle where people take the bags and we just do a rotating track around it and stuffing the bags. And we could put that camera right in the middle and shoot that. So yeah, you more and more stuff, you can be as creative as you want with it.
And where else are you sourcing content then? Because you talked about Angry Birds and that sort of thing. So it's not all Rotary material that you're using.
No, we have from Oculus, when you buy it, there's a whole gaming store where you can buy stuff. You get some stuff free. One of the things that I downloaded free is a film called, it's a short film experience. I'm not sure film is the correct word, because a film you watch, a VR you experience, and it's called The Key, K-E-Y. And I didn't know what it was, but it was free, so I figured, hey, I'll try it. I downloaded it and was just blown away. There's an organization called VR for Good, which I think is through Facebook, and they they help promote VRs for social causes. And I can't tell you about this because I would prefer you to download it and see it. But on our VR Universe meetup, once a month now, we're starting to have a speaker series, hopefully kind of like a TED Talk type thing. But on July 9th, we are having the director of that project, the creator of that project, as our guest speaker, and just amazing some of the stuff she's working on. So you can download stuff. At our last event, we were at a networking called Green Drinks event a little bit before we got shut down. And we decided maybe people didn't want to see a 5-minute long polio video. So we decided to give people the option to play Angry Birds or watch the African polio. 90% picked the African polio experience, which gave me a little bit of hope in people. So, but there's a lot of fun. I use it with my kids. I use it for a lot of fun. I use it for exercising. But what draws me to it is the social experience and the good that can be done with it. And during our VR Universe meeting, basically we sit around with most people have never heard of Rotary. They've never, if they have, they're not sure what it is. And we talk a little bit about Rotary. I do an introduction of what it is, but mostly we talk about what they're seeing people do in their community and what interests them as far as service. And a few times people have been saying like, oh, we make masks with 3D printers. And another person says, oh, I do that too. And then they collaborate. So it's connecting these people to go out and do good. So the potential for utilizing VR for good is just limitless, I think.
Next question. How much are the cardboard viewers?
They range about $3 to $5 each. You can get them branded. So you saw that one with End Polio. We were actually originally going to, at the district convention, besides having this class, we were also going to have a little a VR experience village set up there. So Maureen and I were looking at doing a class together and then maybe branding some with the district logo. So we were looking at those, but usually about $3 to $5. The big thing is I've got an XR, one of the large phones, and a lot of them don't fit that where they fit the smaller phones. So it just depends. But just do VR, custom VR viewers, and you'll see tons of them online. And I quickly want to tell you about an organization. They were founded by Rotarians, the ones that have the VR in trunk. It's called vrforsocialimpact.org. And that's VR, the number 4, socialimpact.org. And they help a lot of organizations with fundraisers, with creating content for local things. And Jane Louie there, who's with the Rotary Club down there, has just been a great resource, especially as it comes to fundraising. Because originally I didn't come up with the idea to fundraise. I was doing it for membership. And she called me up and said, I want to introduce myself. What are you doing for fundraising? And I said, what? And so she set me straight on that. And then I was like, oh, yes, I missed that one. So it's great to collaborate. In our VR group, I just met a guy from Texas, from one of the Dallas Rotary clubs. And he's really excited now. So he's emailing me and asking if he can do some stuff with it. And I'm like, yes, I want people to run with it.
You may have answered this next question, but what were the red viewers that were on a picture? It was one of your slides.
Mm-hmm. That was the cardboard viewers. So they're just, Google Cardboard is what it was originally called. It's all it is a cardboard frame. It's really no different than this. It opens up and you put your phone right there, and all it has is cardboard with a couple little lenses in it. And the lenses just kind of help focus, because if you try to look at your phone like this, it's really hard to. So it just kind of puts it at a slight distance for you and helps to wrap it around.
Someone, the name is Class 28. So I'm guessing it's another leader. Would you be open to present your stuff at one of our Zoom meetings?
Yes. To the annoyance of everyone around me, I talk a lot about this. So, it is definitely my passion. I'm more than happy to come into the Zoom meeting and talk about it. The 3 films, yes, they are available through RI, so that rotary.org/VR. They're on YouTube as well. Like I said, the visual quality of Two Drops of Patience and of One Small Act, and Jane Louie, who was at that Rotary Club, she's one of the producers of that One Small Act film. Those visual qualities, both of those are much stronger than the Ward one, but they're all 3 excellent films. But you can just download them from there.
How can you envisage doing this activity with the current social distancing?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we moved to the VR universe online, because we can't get out there. Now, when we go out, and I put this on somebody's head, even before COVID, I put it on somebody's head, they experience it, and then I take it off, and what I immediately do is we have alcohol wipes. We just wipe it down just to keep things safe and clean for everybody. I have a feeling right until, for a little bit, until we're out of this completely, a lot of people aren't going to be really keen on putting on a helmet on their face that they don't know about, even if you are wiping it down. So utilizing it for the VR universe, where my goal with that was, first of all, it's almost like a therapy session for me. I get to go in there and just discuss Rotary with people and discuss my passion with them, and they have ideas that are amazing. But some of them, and it happened last week, a woman was in there and she was asking about Rotary, and then she said, "Are there any clubs in Texas?" And I said, "Well, of course there's clubs in Texas. Where are you?" And she said, "Dallas." And I pointed to Rick, the only other Rotarian in the meeting that day, and I said, "Rick here is from Dallas." And he said, so they exchanged information. I see it as if somebody shows interest, and no matter where they are in Kentucky, I can say, "Well, there's a club in your neighborhood here. Why don't I put you in touch with them?" But I don't know if there's a way of utilizing the headsets to go out at the moment. So I think we'll get there soon, but who knows when that's going to be.
We have an annual garage sale. Would it be possible to set up a virtual market if you had a space and walk around virtually through the space, looking at the items on offer, then bid on them online?
You can do that, actually. You can do that with your phone. There are, just do a search for virtual reality apps on your phone. And basically, if you've ever done a panorama, shot with your phone, and you start at a location and then you have to slowly move it around like this until you get to the end. Well, you do basically that, but you do it all the way around. Now, with the phone, usually you don't get the sky up above, or you don't get your feet, which is fine. Most people can do it. So you can do that, and then it puts little points where you can walk forward and you can see something. So yeah, it can be done. Now, you can do a great job of it, but then the cost of it is, to have it in here would be probably not be prohibitive.
In the VR session, is there an audio experience that accompanies the visual experience? How is that created and integrated?
Yeah, the audio is amazing. The audio, and I come from an audio background as well, so I'm real picky about that. This right here, it has audio built in. It's actually pretty good. But when you're wearing it, people around you can hear it. So there are headphones, like an event, you may want noise canceling headphones on there, but I can plug in little earbuds in there when I'm doing it. Some of especially the meditation ones, have some beautiful sound that just wraps 360 around you. You just feel it coming around you. And there are specific apps that are just, even though they have visuals, they're designed to show off the audio skills of the designers. But one of the best ones out there is Star Wars, Vader Immortal, it's called. And it's probably one of the most high-end visual ones as well. And the way they do the Force is if you have lightsabers, you listen for for a certain sound where it is in the room, and that's where you turn before you're shot by a laser. So the Force is more of an audio experience. So the only problem with that is I have to have the headphones in, turned up loud, because if my kid's in a room screaming, I can't hear it, and I'm yelling at them, quiet, I'm listening to the Force. So I don't look cool doing it whatsoever, but I feel cool doing it. But yes, audio, wonderful.
Okay, and this must come from a realtor. Do you learn about this through Rotary or through real estate? Are many realtors confident in this? And most clubs have a realtor or two. So,
no, we're not the brightest. We're not the brightest in the crowd usually. The problem with it right now is more content than how you do it. It's not that there's a thing called Matterport, which is a 360 camera that you can use for real estate quite a bit. It does a great job, and there are agents that have it. I've looked online where it's happening with real estate is in the larger cities. So in New York and in LA, they're starting to do it. It makes it so much easier to move instead of driving across town to look at a house. The problem here in a fairly small area, not enough agents do it in their houses to make it worth it. But we're heading that way, and we made a big jump toward that way with COVID, with virtual tours and a lot of that. So COVID is just like COVID all of a sudden forced everybody to learn how to use Zoom and video conferencing. It's also forcing us toward VR as well. This was certainly an experience doing it here on Zoom for the first time. I hope I covered everything. And again, I love talking about this, so feel free to email me if you have any questions. And if you need to set up a phone call with me, I'm happy to do that as well. And I want to thank Murray, and I want to thank Caleb and Marnie and everybody at the district for setting this up. I'm sorry I didn't get to see everybody in person, but next year sounds like it'll be fun.